So I want to talk about Mars in the 12th house because the 12th house can be a very confusing house to really navigate. It is not in the open, it is a little bit cloaked, it is unconscious. It deals with things that sometimes we don't realize, things we cannot see, but it's also home to like spirituality, karma, self doubt, creativity, spiritual awakening. Like it's a lot of different things in the 12th house, just like any house has multiple, layers to it, right? So what I want to talk about first is the fact that Mars wants to be in a very active house. First house, which it rules. Eighth house, which it rules with Pluto. Even the fifth house, maybe the fifth house is ruled by the sun, right? And so Mars and the sun both like to be seen for different reasons, of course. Mars is not as much caring about the ego as it's caring about dominance and action and getting things done and moving things and showing its presence. That's what Mars wants to do. So the 12th house is a very different house. It's a spiritual house. It is calm. It is gentle. It is trying to understand things. It is trying to understand things at a deeper level. So it is calm. It is relaxed. It is not loud, boisterous. It is not dominant. And so Mars can sometimes have a hard time expressing itself simply because it's in the 12th house. Now, this could be similar also to people who have Mars in Pisces. But now understand, if you're Mars in Pisces, Mars doesn't want to be in Pisces. Mars wants to be in Scorpio, wants to be in Aries for sure. It might even want to be in Leo, might even want to be in Capricorn. But what's going to happen is if Mars is in Pisces in the first house, Mars will take that because Mars is like, oh, I rule the first house. I'll take this Pisces sign. I'll figure it out. Just like with the 12th house, if you have Mars and Aries in the 12th house, it might be a little bit easier for you than if it was Mars and Taurus maybe in the 12th house, or Mars and Virgo in the 12th house maybe. So fire signs tend to be able to deal with Mars a little bit better anyway. So if you have a fire sign in the 12th house, it can express itself in a more um, authentic way when needed. The thing about Mars in the 12th house is that energy comes out when needed. I think that is the biggest thing that I have come to understand with a Mars placement is that it doesn't mean you can't do these things because it's in the 12th house. There's a lot of doom and gloom with the 12th house when people talk about it. A lot of people are scared of it. I don't think there's anything to be scared of. I think it can be challenging, but it's when you understand how you must use the energy, it works to your benefit. Because Mars or Mercury in the 12th house is cloaked, it does mean that you are not going to have some of those negative qualities that other signs have or their reputation. Here's what I mean. If a sign is known for something negative, the 12th house can almost cloak it where they don't come off as as arrogant, right? You can have someone where some people don't like how bold Mars and Aries is, how bold Aries is, or how they don't always have tact in how they say things. It's just straight to the point. And again, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it's very straight to the point. There's no sugarcoating it. No, I'm not going to confuse you with what I'm saying. This is what I mean. That's an Aries. That's very typical Aries. Because Aries just sees things as like, this is what it is. Why are we complicating it? Let's just let it be what it is. So Sun and Aries person in the 12th house, they're not going to come off as that. People might even view it as a strength when they do that because it's in the 12th house. And the 12th house is Neptune. And so if you have placements in the 12th house, it does, in a way, it can help you. It can help you not use those negative traits of your sign, because anything that's negative with your sign is not going to be as bold or as aggressive as it is in another house. So for instance, Leo can be very prideful, but if you have a Sun in Leo or Mars in Leo in the 12th house, even when you are being prideful, even when you are talking about yourself, even when you're doing some of those negative things that Leo can be associated with. Again, all the signs have negative traits. This is not me bashing Leo, because I love Leo energy, but it's not going to come across that way because it's in 12th house. So the 12th house can cloak things, but you also have to understand it can lead us to feel dissatisfied. Mars in the 12th house, you feel trapped a lot. There's things you want to do that you either afraid to do, you have self-doubt, or things that you just don't get to doing, because remember, the 12th house wants to relax. The 12th house wants time to create. It wants time to soak everything in. It's not a very stable house. It's not a very literal house. It's a spiritual house, to be honest with you. So sometimes these people just do what they feel. Even if you're not a very emotional person, you have the strong sensibility of doing things that you feel. And not in a forceful way, not in like a fourth house type of I want everyone to feel what I feel way, but in a very authentic way. The sixth house, I always talk about opposites because you have to understand that energy as well. The sixth house is the house that deals with tasks, and it deals with responsibility, right? And so the sixth house deals with responsibility, it deals with tasks, it deals with things we have to do. The 12th house deals with what we want to do. And so when you have a 12th house energy and a sixth house energy, if the sixth house energy is positively aspect, if the sixth house energy is a positive placement, doesn't indicate any hardships, it can work in your favor. Because Mars in 12th house, um, again, it can come off as lazy if you do only what you want to do. Whereas if you have placements in your sixth house, you're going to naturally do your responsibilities, but you're going to need time to go back to the 12th house and do what it is you want to do. So Mars and 12th house people, it is very important for you to have balance. Don't just live in a dream world doing what you want to do, but at the same time, you also have to understand that you have to also do what you need to do. That is the definite definition of just like balance. It's not just about what you want, it's about what you need. But the 12th house is really centered on those desires, those needs, and those wishes. And so when you tap into the energy positively, you can be successful. Mars and Aries, let's say you have Mars and Aries, you still have that Mars and Aries energy, but it's never going to come out like a first house Mars and Aries person. But you have those abilities, that leadership, that pioneering energy of, well, I'm going to do this and I'm not going to have that fear. You have that in you. Now, what might happen is it takes certain circumstances to bring that out in you, and that's for any Mars sign. Certain things have to happen for you to bring that energy out. So let's say someone is Mars and Leo, and they don't, their personality, they're not very ostentatious. They don't really like glamour or glitz and things like that. As a person, like their personality is not that. But you give them an assignment to throw a party, that's going to be the most probably immaculate party. Why? 12th house is very creative. It envisions things. Leo likes to do things in a way that is royal. And even if this person is not a Leo, if their Mars sign is Leo, they are going to want to do things in a way that is pretty magnificent, something that's unforgettable, something that shows out. And if it's in the 12th house, you give them time to do it. That's the thing also. You can't rush Mars and 12th house people. They're not on the same time as you. They're not going to rush to do things. And so sometimes I think, now again, it depends on the placement and it depends on the situation. You can't rush me to do something creative, right? You just can't. I need time. But if you need a task done, I'm really fast with doing tasks. I'm really fast with thinking of ideas. But as far as getting something done, as a Mars and 12th house person, you have to give me time to do these things. You can't just tell me, oh, you need to do this. Like, you have to give me time to process how I'm going to even go about doing it. Because again, this house is very internal. It internalizes everything. And another thing is that energy in the 12th house is going to come out. Now, you have to tap into it. There's a misconception that what's in the 12th house can't be changed. It can't, but oh, it's just horrible, and a 12th house and secret enemies and things like that. There's all the houses have negative attributes to them. The 12th house is just the last house, so it's the most complicated. It's complicated and simple at the same time. So what you'll see is that energy is going to come out no matter what. And maybe that person's personality isn't like that, right? Or whatever their Mars sign is, their personality might not come across that way. But what they do is going to come across that way because Mars is our actions. So let me give you an example. Let's say there's a woman who is a housewife or stay-at-home mom or something like that for 15 years. And she doesn't work. Let's say the husband worked or whatever the case may be. And the husband decides he wants to leave her. Leave her for someone else. And everybody's frightened. Like, what is she going to do? What is she going to do? Oh my gosh, she hasn't worked in 15 years. She doesn't have her own, the house, everything is in his name. He makes all the money. And this woman lands on her feet. She moves out. She gets her own place. It's nice. She gets her own stuff together. And you're just like, how did you do that? You were with him for 15 years. Like, he did everything. But she had Mars and Aries in the 12th house. So when she needed to be independent, she was able to do it. That's an example. I'm just making an example. But that's what I'm saying. With Mars and whatever your Mars sign is in, if you're in the 12th house, take that energy of that Mars sign. Look it up. You still can do those things. The 12th house just means the expression isn't going to be as strong sometimes because you have to tap into it and force yourself to make things a reality. The 12th house is not about reality. That's why we have such great imaginations. It's not about reality. That's why you're probably in touch, especially if you have multiple planets in the 12th house. You're in touch with the spiritual world. Your dreams are spiritual. You've always felt different Because the 12th house is not about reality. It is the link to the spiritual world. And there's spiritualism all in the zodiac, on the house. I'm not saying it's the only spiritual house, but I'm saying it's the last house of the zodiac. So they understand everything. That doesn't mean you know everything. It simply means that your spirit might be a little bit more in tune with things that are not literal and right in front of you. And because you're so in tune with that, sometimes reality feels hard. It feels hard to do those things related to reality, which is why you sometimes feel stuck. And so in order to tap into that, you're going to have to sometimes go outside your comfort zone and become conscious of what's in your 12th house. What's in your 12th house is waiting to come out, because Mars is not going to be contained for long. And you want to watch Mars getting angry. You want to watch it, because when a person sometimes all of a sudden has an erupt, like they just erupt, and you're like, where did that anger come from? Sometimes it's those Mars and 12th house people, and they suppress their anger. So it's very important for you to know what makes you angry, know what makes you upset, and sometimes address those things instead of keeping them hidden. And because what happens is people like to underestimate people. They like to underestimate certain signs. And so when they underestimate you, what happens is you become the villain. Oh, why did you act this way? Why did you do this? Only because you're usually calm or you're usually chill. But all of a sudden now you're the victim. I mean, they're the victim. Now, another thing you have to understand is, like I said before, the 12th house cloaks. So actually, people might sometimes understand your anger because you rarely get angry. But you also have to understand it depends on the people in your life. Because if you have people in your life who are underestimating you, or people in your life who are trying to take advantage of you, whatever the case may be, they're assuming you're always going to play this role they've put you in. And so when that Mars anger comes out, all of a sudden, sometimes they're going to, I'm the victim. I can't believe they reacted this way. So it's very important to understand your anger, because Mars in the 12th house, Mars wants to express itself. And after so many times, Mars is going to express itself. And you want to make sure it's not expressing itself at the wrong time, at the wrong people, because you've been, repressing something for so long. And again, it depends on what the placement it's in. Mars and Gemini, it's probably going to tell you when they're starting to feel a certain way. But certain signs can be more just gentle in the first place. So they might not always want to create conflict or engage in conflict, because Mars doesn't mind conflict, but in certain signs it avoids conflict, right? But it also is going to tell you how this person engages in conflict. And I have an Instagram post about Mars and conflict on my Instagram page. That's what I want to say about the 12th house Mars placement for now. Also, be sure to watch my Mercury video and my Sun video as well, because it is very important, if you have 12th house placements, to really understand the energy, not let the energy use you, and really understand how to manifest what it is you want in your life, and tap into those abilities that we often keep hidden or that we are afraid to express because it's in the 12th house.